Dear friends, welcome to another episode of Geopolitical and Military News. In this video, we will discuss how Russians and Ukrainians managed to replenish their losses amid the largest and most devastating conflict in Europe since the end of World War II. In a war, the problems faced by the nations involved are numerous, but there is one particularly severe issue that can determine the difference between victory and defeat. I am referring to troop rotation and maintaining a steady flow of fighters to the front lines. Even today, in the 21st century, despite the extreme mechanization and automation of combat, depending on the conflict, hundreds of thousands of soldiers are still needed. However, maintaining so many men on the front lines is a brutal logistical challenge, and we can clearly see this in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. According to various sources, at this moment, there are around 1 million soldiers in combat between Russians and Ukrainians, with each side suffering hundreds of casualties per day, including both the dead and wounded. Not to mention the thousands of soldiers who need to be replaced daily, whether due to the end of their service time or through the usual process of rotating fighters. All these astronomical numbers raise an important question. How do Russia and Ukraine manage to replenish their losses and maintain a constant flow of soldiers to the front lines? For Ukraine, being the nation under attack, the process is comparatively much simpler and easier than for Russia. This is because when a nation is attacked by another, the country enters a special governance state known as martial law. If the country is attacked, the Congress can approve the declaration of martial law, which grants the president broader powers to deal with exceptionally grave crises, such as a foreign invasion. Among these additional powers is the compulsory mobilization of reservists, which is exactly what happened in Ukraine after it was invaded by Russia on February 24, 2022. Since that day, Ukraine has been under martial law, with all men aged 25 or older being automatically called up, a perfectly normal measure in the context of a foreign invasion. Therefore, for Ukraine, it is relatively simple and quick to have soldiers for its defensive effort, as, in practice, any man between 25 and 55 years old is eligible to go to war, meaning that the Ukrainian government, whenever necessary, can draw extra resources from a vast reservoir estimated at around 10 million combat-ready men. However, in Russia's case, despite having a pool of potential soldiers almost 5 times larger, bringing those men to war is a much more complex process due to an unusual detail. Officially, the Russian government does not recognize a state of war with Ukraine. This is the largest conflict on European soil since the end of World War II, involving thousands of armored vehicles and over 1 million soldiers. But even so, Vladimir Putin insists on treating it as a mere special military operation. This means that Putin cannot do what Zelensky does, who simply reaches out and takes the men he needs to replenish his losses. For this, Putin only has 2 options, the main and most used so far being the hiring of reservists. Through this option, the Russian army manages to recruit only men who genuinely want to go to war, ensuring that at least initially, the men won't be forced to go to Ukraine against their will. But to hire thousands of men every day just to cover losses and rotations at the front lines, Putin needs to offer highly attractive contracts, reaching up to $50,000, a fortune by Russian living standards, where the average annual salary is around $14,000. Therefore, in addition to the costs related to transportation, training, food, and equipment for the new soldiers, Putin is also forced to pay large salaries and nearly $1 million insurance policies to convince Russians to go to war. All of this because, as I mentioned, he refuses to acknowledge that Russia is at war with Ukraine. The second option Putin has available to obtain new soldiers is through mobilization, something he can only do sporadically, as his country is not officially at war. Moreover, mobilization is highly unpopular in society, and we only need to look at what happened in September 2022, when more than 300,000 Russians fled the country during a mobilization process that resulted in the recruitment of 300,000 reservists. Putin knows that if he overuses mobilizations, he risks losing control over Russian society, opening the door to strengthening of internal dissidents, which could be very damaging to his regime. Therefore, as is evident, replenishing Ukrainian losses is a comparatively simpler and quicker process, given that the country is officially at war after being invaded. In Russia, due to its leaders' refusal to recognize a state of war, replenishment is much slower and, above all, much more expensive. And despite Putin having a massive advantage in terms of human resources, for now at least, he does not have free and unrestricted access to this vast pool of potential soldiers. Thank you for watching the video until the end. If you liked the content, don't forget to leave a like. This helps the channel grow and reach more people. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike and explain in the comments how we can improve. Also, comment with suggestions for topics we can cover in future videos. Insulting comments or those defending dictatorships or war criminals will be blocked without exception. Thank you for your understanding. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, consider subscribing by clicking the subscribe button below and hitting the bell to receive all notifications. Thank you. See you next time.